Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cone back here again today with another video. Let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks for a little bit. I've been making these What's Next videos about all the teams that get eliminated from the playoffs. If you haven't seen them, go check them out. They're in a playlist on my channel. Also, while you're on my channel, you could consider liking and subscribing if you'd like. But when I'm thought about making this Hawks video, it's a lot more optimistic than some of the other ones I've made. I feel like they're either really optimistic or really pessimistic, and spoiler alert, I'm pretty optimistic about this Hawks team. Coming into the season, I personally thought a successful year for them would have just been making the playoffs, and they ultimately way overachieved compared to those expectations of me and pretty much every other person that I had talked to before the season. Pretty much everyone thought that this Hawks team was a team that could sneak into the playoffs, maybe give a team a tough first round series, one of those top 3 teams if they got a 6 through 8 seed, but ultimately would end up bowing out in the first round. And coming into the playoffs, I also thought winning a first round series would be a successful season for them. In my playoff prediction video, I picked the Hawks to beat the Knicks, and I said ultimately they would fall to the Sixers in 5 games, but that they should be proud of just winning a series, and that it was a good sign for things to come. They beat the Knicks, like I predicted, and then they went on to beat the 76ers, who I picked to win the whole Eastern Conference in 7 games, and then brought the Milwaukee Bucks, the now Eastern Conference champion Milwaukee Bucks, to 6 games in the conference finals, with Trae Young playing hobbled at the end of it. It was a great run for them, and it really wasn't even that much of a fluke. This team's just good, and I know a lot of people, Hawks fans especially, are really pessimistic now because they missed out on this opportunity. I know this was a good chance for the Hawks to try and make that run, try and capitalize on the momentum that they had and win a ring, kind of coming out of absolutely nowhere. But it's kind of rare in the NBA that something like that happens, and this Hawks team, unlike a lot of people, I'm really optimistic. I don't think that this was a fluke, and I do think these Hawks are going to be back. A lot of people have been saying that the reason the Hawks are screwed is because the Brooklyn Nets are here to stay. And I do agree that I don't think right now in this current iteration, these Hawks are going to beat a fully healthy Brooklyn Nets team. But you also have to consider that we don't ever know how healthy the Nets will be, and that all the Nets guys are free agents very soon. So there is potential for that team to break up. And even if they stick together, who knows how the team will age? Who knows what role players they'll bring in? And additionally, who knows how this Hawks team is going to grow? I had no idea the Hawks are going to be this good this fast. And a lot of that is due to their star player, Trae Young, of course. He's only 22 years old. The way that he played, you would think he's 26, 27, entering his prime. But no, he's still a full 6 years away from when NBA players typically have their prime, around that 27 to 30-ish age. He's a really far distance from that. It's only his 3rd year in the league that he did this. And so I think he's only going to get better, and now that he has that Eastern Conference Finals run under his belt, he's got that playoff experience, he's battle-tested, and so is most of this roster. This roster is going to be really good going forward because alongside Trae Young, there's some really good pieces that are still on the right side of 30. Bogdanovic, who they added in restricted free agency this past offseason, 28 years old. Clint Capella, their star center and a guy who I think fits perfectly next to Trae Young, is only 27. DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish, I'm really high on both of those guys. DeAndre Hunter, of course, because he's a UVA guy, but you saw what Cam Reddish was doing in the playoffs, locking up Chris Middleton a lot of the time and making him hit some really tough baskets in some of those late game minutes. Both of those guys have the potential to grow and be really good players on this team. They're both still super young too. You also have Onyeka Okongwu, who showed a lot of flashes. You have a guy like John Collins. Kevin Huerter was the best player on a team that beat Philly in Game 7. John Collins is a guy they're probably going to have to pay, but even if they pay him, he's only 23 years old. This team is super, super young. They do have some pieces that are getting older, like a Lou Williams and a Danilo Gallinari, but I think those guys are kind of replaceable. Danilo Gallinari, you can add another stretch for. Lou Williams, while he is one of the best bench players we've ever seen, at this point when he's 34, you can find other bench scoring. There are options out there to add on the roles that those guys are going to vacate at some point as they get older. So I think this team is going to be great going forward. I think they're going to become a staple in the Eastern Conference going forward because Trae Young's not going anywhere. Clint Capella's not going anywhere. DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, Kevin Huerter, Bogdanovic, these guys aren't going anywhere. It's going to be a really good team going forward. And what I think they need to do going forward is consider The possibility of as soon as a superstar becomes available, cash in. A lot of teams miss their championship window because they try to grow organically. And that is definitely a path that you could take. We're seeing right now with the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that grew pretty much organically outside of like the Drew Holiday trade. And even then, what they traded was their own draft picks and like players that they've had for a little bit. They had Giannis, they had Chris Middleton for a very long time, but they grew things organically. Their two best players came through it organically. So you can do that. That is a possible method. But a lot of time in the NBA, the teams that end up winning it all are teams that have to make the big moves. And for a team like Atlanta, who they're not like a super small market or anything like that, but not a ton of free agents have been lining up to go to Atlanta, at least in recent years. Maybe seeing Trae Young, that'll change. That is possible. He's that good of a player that he could draw guys to come play with him. But when you have a lot of young assets on your team, like a DeAndre Hunter and a Cameron Reddish, those are the two guys I'm looking at specifically, who I think you can either let grow and see how they fill out on this team, or if like a superstar becomes available, those are really interesting pieces. Alongside maybe, if you still have like Gallinari on the books, you can use him as salary filler. They've got all their draft picks. Maybe even they throw in a Bogdan Bogdanovic rather than a Gallinari, and they take away one of those other guys. There are so many options. What I'm saying is there's so many people that on this team are good trade assets. So many players can be good trade assets in a move for one of those superstars. Before I started this video, I was thinking about what the Hawks could do in the future, and I don't think I quite realized how many assets they have in terms of players, and they have all their draft picks going forward. The Hawks are in perfect position to make a win now move soon. Right now, there's not really any superstar players available except maybe like a Damian Lillard, and I'm not quite sure how him and Trae Young would fit together in the backcourt, although I know it would be must-see TV every single night. But if a guy becomes available, whether it's like a stud wing or a stud big to put near Trae Young, whether it's like a power forward, I think center's good. I think Clint Capella is going to be around for a while. Whether it's a 4, a 3, a 2, whatever it is, they need to look to make that move. That's what I think the Hawks should do, because that's the way they're going to get over the hump. You can grow this thing organically, like I said. Cam Reddish shows a lot of flashes. A lot of people kind of compare him to like a PG-13. I don't know if he'll ever become that good, but I do see the comparisons in terms of his ability to score the ball and really lock up on the defensive end. DeAndre Hunter is a guy that I think is going to be an all-defensive caliber guy. It's just a matter of if his offense comes along. And throughout the season before he left with injury, it did look like that was going to come along. So if he's able to stay as a consistent 3-and-D guy, whether you keep him on the roster or trade him, he has a ton of value on an NBA roster. So what I'm saying is, right now the Hawks should ride it out. Next year, go into it with the same roster. You made the Eastern Conference Finals. You don't really need to change that much. Lou Williams is expiring. Tony Snell is expiring. So maybe those are guys you try to replace. Maybe you try and move off of Gallinari's money soon. But the fact that it's only the second year of his contract and he was really solid for them, especially in the playoffs this year, I think they're going to hold on to him, maybe even through the end of his contract in 2023. So I think right now you kind of just ride this thing out. But they need to keep their eye out. And I think they will. Atlanta has like this kind of feel like they know what they have right now is special, but they at the same time they know that it can be better. They know the run wasn't a fluke. Nate McMillan is going to come back as the coach. I would be shocked if he doesn't, and I think they run this thing back. But keep an eye out for Atlanta whenever those superstar names come up, because I'm just saying, it's a possibility. In terms of free agents, they're not really going to have money. Bogdan, Clint Capella, Danilo Gallinari, all making above $17 million. They do have like Tony Snell and Lou Williams coming off the books for $20 million combined, but they're going to sign Trae Young to a max extension this offseason, I would assume. And John Collins, if they pay him, is going to really cap this team out. So don't expect them to be big players in the free agency market, except maybe in like mid-level exception type stuff. Like I said, with the run that they made and with Trae Young showing how good he is, how much he elevates his teammates, and just how fun this Hawks team seemed to be, I wouldn't be surprised if some people wanted to come to Atlanta, maybe some vet who isn't quite like at the end of their career, and can still produce. Maybe they try and make their way to Atlanta looking like, hey, this is a young, fun roster, and maybe, who knows, I'll have a shot at winning a ring or at least competing on a high stage, because that's what the Hawks are going to do, I think, going forward. So those are my thoughts on the Atlanta Hawks. Let me know what you think about this team. Did you think it was a fluke, or are you with me that this Hawks team just really is good? I want to give a shout to all the Hawks fans. I've met a lot of cool Hawks fans over the course of their run, so I want to give a shout to y'all. If you made it to this point in the video, drop a the Hawks will be back in the comment section below, which I think might be the title of this video. So that might be weird, but we'll see. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys later. Real one, say it back.